So Susanna, we've recently started introducing a new technology to our patients called the INVOCell. What is the INVOCell?
Well, this is INVOCell. So INVOCell is a device in which you can put eggs and sperm inside the capsule here, and then put this inside the outer cover, and this can go back into the vagina for incubation. This was only possible recently because of FDA-approved gas-permeable plastics. You have to have gas exchange so that the eggs and sperm and the fluid inside can maintain an environment that's good for embryo culture. And so this was developed as an alternative to traditional IVF, where eggs and sperm go into an incubator in the lab, with the design to allow a decrease in cost. So how would you compare this to what we traditionally do in the lab, what we've been doing for the past decades?
Technically, it simulates the incubator conditions in the lab without having the expense of the air handling systems and the purification and the humidity, all that expensive technology. What it doesn't allow us to do is to monitor the fertilization, and we can't assist fertilization. So it's really ideal for a subset of patients that are ideal IVF candidates, but we anticipate that fertilization will happen naturally on its own.
I agree. When patients ask me about, is INVOCell right for me, and what is the likelihood that I'll get pregnant, I talk to them about how they determined that this actually could work. They did a study where they put some people through traditional IVF and some people through INVOCell, and they looked at the pregnancy rates. And they intentionally selected people with high chances for pregnancy, younger, lower body mass index, good semen parameters, because they were really wanting to see if it was possible to get a vaginal incubation device to be similar to the lab. And in that study, the pregnancy rates were actually comparable. But there were still differences. There were fewer total high-quality embryos coming from the INVOCell device than from the incubator. But again, the pregnancy rates in that first embryo transfer were comparable. So many of my patients will think about this as an alternative as they're thinking about their next steps. When you talk to your patients about INVOCell versus IUI, what do you talk about in that context?
Well, I think you naturally would think about it as an alternative to IVF, but you can also think about it as an alternative to IUIs. What we do know is that patients with unexplained infertility who come in and do IUIs, we expect a quarter of them to be pregnant after 3 tries. This technology is cheap enough that one cycle of this is equivalent to 3 or 4 IUI cycles. And what we know is that a quarter of the patients will get pregnant after 3 IUIs, and 50% of the patients get pregnant after a single cycle of this. So this is a way of expediting and saving time and money at the beginning of the process when they're even considering IUIs.